full daughter of the owner, who stood next to him. The guest said that Master Jin's daughter had grown up so much and become a real beauty. People also admired that at her fairly young age, she was already a great martial artist. True, people whispered quietly to themselves or behind their backs that this was a very low level, and that the girl was just a slacker. Evil Girl had heard similar conversations several times. People also discussed that their Schwanky family was slowly but surely going down. The Evil Girl was beside herself with anger. She worked hard, she believed, but people slandered her. The girl harbored in her soul a terrible hatred towards other people. She harbored thoughts that one day a great day would come, when all people would pay for their rudeness. At this time, the Evil Girl was really lucky. She turned out to be the owner of one system, which gave her additional strength, energy, as well as all kinds of artifacts. The girl believed that because she had a system, she was the chosen one of the gods. Therefore, she considered herself free to do whatever she wanted, regardless of other people. But suddenly, life gave a crack, so another one and another. There were more and more cracks. They grew with a terrible creak. Soon it became impossible to ignore them. Cracks grew in all directions. After some time, glass flew down, breaking with a loud ringing far below into 1,000 large and small fragments. Here, Chu Xingchen tried, who by this time had already returned to his true appearance. The guy worked tirelessly. The Evil Girl was so hateful and disgusting to him. Now, a large hole gaped in the place where the girl's face should have been. Another gaping hole appeared in the area of her heart. Although it seemed to many that she did not have a heart before, this could not be called a fight or a battle. It was an ordinary fight. But Xingchen did not feel a drop of pity for such a selfish person. She deserved the most severe punishment. The girl could not fight and could not answer Chu Xingchen with a single blow. She started screaming about what they had done to her system and why she now couldn't contact it. Chu Xingchen's system answered the girl. She said that the girl's system was weak, that it was just artificial intelligence, a big pile of all kinds of data. Chu Xingchen's system added that while the guy was distracting the girl, the system was deciphering the code of this artificial intelligence, after which it was safely absorbed. Being in shock, the system even managed to snap its fingers. Then she solemnly said that at some point the attack and defense switched places, and that decided everything. Chu stood in front of the Evil Girl. Anger, or even hatred towards the Evil Girl, was visible on the guy's face. The system was behind him, and it seemed like it was holding him back. The Evil Girl screamed that this was bullshit. She shouted that she had never seen one system devour another. Then she said that this simply could not happen. Enraged, the Evil Girl screamed that Chu Xingchen was a weak loser, and he didn't dare do such tricks to her. Then the girl began to demand from Chu that he return her system back. Chu Xingchen gave the Evil Girl a hard slap and yelled that he would not let her go. He added that if we return the system to the girl, she will again harm people because of her anger. The blow turned out to be quite powerful. The Evil Girl's head fell back, and Xingchen's blow left a mark on her cheek. But this was only the very beginning. The guy promised to work hard. It's true that Chu Xingchen even put so much strength and energy into this blow that his own hand hurt. But he had to pay for all the people who were harmed by the Evil Girl. Chu Xingchen hit the girl again and shouted that this was the noble Shizua Wu, whom she was going to vilely destroy. The girl's head was thrown to the side by the impact. The next time, Chu Xingchen struck from the other side. At the same time, he said that he was beating for the villagers, whom the Evil Girl was going to doom to even greater torment. Then, Chu Xingchen launched a series of powerful punches, using the Evil Girl like an ordinary punching bag. After the blows, he told the girl what kind of Her Majesty she was. Then the system intervened and said that the Evil Girl had nothing to do with what was happening to the princess. Xingchen thought and said that these were blows for prevention. But Chu Xingchen saved the most important thing for last. The guy collected every single energy he had in order to invest as much as possible into a powerful blow that could knock down a bull. Chu Xingchen said that this blow would be for himself, because the Evil Girl tried to kill him and take the system for herself. Then the guy hit his head so hard that the girl flew off. Moreover, the Evil Girl flew for a very long time, bouncing off the ground and continuing her flight. It was like throwing flat pebbles into a lake and they bounced off the water. Chu Qingqian growled that even if the girl was born with flaws, they can be removed over time. But no one gave her the right to maim innocent people because of her shortcomings. Chu Qingqian was about to hit the evil girl again and take a test shot to the head. He hoped that she would eventually understand that people should be treated well and not killed. But the system pulled Xinqian back. She said that if he hit the mean girl again, she would just fly into pieces. The guy was not going to kill even such a spoiled person. The system noticed that the girl could still be useful. She added that her system was in her hands, and she was going to study this alien system thoroughly. The system ordered the evil girl's soul to return to her body. It was clear to the naked eye that the soul was wounded. But, based on the circumstances, she got off lightly. Since the evil girl's soul was injured, the process of returning to her body was quite difficult and painful. But for the girl to stay alive, it was absolutely necessary. But there was also one problem. The evil girl did not want to part with her system. The girl understood that without this thing, she was nothing special. The evil girl opened her mouth and growled that her property, her system, should be returned to her. The girl never wanted to part with her system, which made her strong. It turned out to be the same story that could have happened to Xingqian before. When, due to the fact that he did not want to part with his system, his soul could be torn into small pieces. As a result of such actions of the evil girl, her soul slipped like a smoky spot against the background of the blackness of the night. It was a sad ending. Everything was over completely and irrevocably. Enormous amounts of energy were concentrated in the pianist's sleek hands and thin, long fingers. The guys sweated profusely on their foreheads from the exertion, but they did a great job. The four guardians formed a small circle. The entire area of the circle was dotted with powerful runes. In the middle of the circle, there was a large ball in which a secret world was enclosed. The mentor of the Divine Moon School was informed that the spell to close the 11th examination hall was fully prepared. The old man praised the guys, saying that they had worked hard. Nevertheless, the secret world still continued to live according to its own laws. Almost its entire central part was now occupied by green fog, in which ghostly soul eaters were hiding. Hu Songlai had no idea what vicissitudes were happening in the subtle world. All he could observe were people standing or sitting near him in the same positions. Hu Songlai first looked at Chu Xingqian and then turned to his mistress. Neither of them moved. The guy did not understand what this could mean and what to do next. Of course, Chu Xingqian's motionless body made Hu Songlai happy. He hoped that the guy had already left for a better world. Recently, he had suffered a lot of fear from Chu Xingqian. Hu Songlai then muttered to his mistress. He said that she was going to deprive Chu Xingqian of the system, and he really wanted to know whether the guy died completely or not. Then, Hu Songlai looked back at Chu again. The guy looked completely dead. Motionless, lifeless body, closed eyes. But Hu Songlai wondered why the girl was not moving. In the end, Hu picked up Chu Xingqian's motionless body and even spoke a few kind words in his honor. He said that he seemed to like Chu, and it was even a pity that he died so soon. Hu Songlai continued to say that Chu Xingqian should not blame him for his death. After all, it is his body and his life. Hu didn't notice at all that Chu Xingqian had opened his eyes. The blissful and peaceful expression instantly disappeared from Hu Songlai's face. Now his face was stained and distorted in a grimace of fear. Hu Songlai never expected such a gift. Out of great fright, Songlai threw Chu Xingqian to the ground. His hands were shaking. He began to yell and point his finger at Chu. He asked how Chu could come to life because he saw that he was not breathing. After the shock, when Chu Xingqian fell to the ground, the evil girl fell nearby. Hu Songlai looked back at his mistress in surprise. At first, she stood motionless. Now she fell silently. Hu Songlai reached out with shaking hands to the motionless body of his mistress. He didn't want to believe that she could die and leave him alone with that complete scumbag Chu. Standing behind, Chu Xingqian explained to the traitor that he had absorbed the evil girl's system, and since she did not want to part with the system, her soul was torn into small pieces. Chu Xingqian added that he hated villains with a fierce hatred, and the fate that befell the evil girl must befall all villains. Chu added that such people have no place in the world. Chu Xingqian held Hu Songlai's head with his outstretched fingers and whispered that his last hour had come, so he needed to say goodbye to life. Hu Songlai was scared to death. The traitor looked at Chu Xingchen with a dog-like gaze. He couldn't fight the guy, and he couldn't run away either. He could only await his fate with doggy humility. But Chu Xingchen did a clever trick, and his system helped him with this. He distracted Hu Songlai with threats to his life, and then, along with his system, deprived him of the system. When Songlai realized what was happening, he screamed heart-rendingly. He began to beg that they would not take away his system and that they would not kill him. He called out to Brother Chu, his Master Chu, and even Mr. Chu. Hu Songlai began to lament that he personally would never have committed the vile things he did if the evil girl had not forced him. Hu said that she completely suppressed him. Chu Xingchen said that he saw how happy Hu was when he thought that the guy was dead. In response, Hu Songlai said that his heart was torn with pain when he saw Chu's lifeless body. Hu said that if Chu Xingchen killed him, then his people would understand that the guy was the chosen one after all. Chu then asked what he should do and how he should deal with the traitor, Hu Songlai. Delighted, Hu said that he should be allowed to live. He added that he would not tell anyone anything about Chu Xingchen. And in general, he was going to start life from scratch. Hu Songlai also suggested that the organization behind the evil girl is quite powerful. Hu promised to help Chu Xingchen and quietly introduce him into the ranks of his enemies. Chu Xingchen laughed and said that Songlai is such a smart-ass double agent. Songlai replied that espionage was over forever, and that he would serve Master Chu faithfully. Chu Xingchen said that without a doubt, Songlai would serve him faithfully. True, for this he will use a heartbreaking pill. Hu looked at the brown pill suspiciously. Chu Xingchen fed the pill to the traitor and explained that if he ever had thoughts of betrayal again, this pill would break his heart. Hu trembled with indescribable horror. Hu Songlai coughed and began to spit, but by this time the pill had already safely entered his stomach. Chu Xingchen sarcastically asked if Hu liked the taste of the pill. Chu Xingchen cheerfully added that this is a very strong pill that was made from a piece of a demon. It has a pleasant brown color and a delicate taste of bitter chocolate. Chu Xingchen also informed the stunned Hu Songlai that if he tried to contact Xingchen's enemies in any way, the pill would immediately work and break his heart. The system asked Chu where he could get such a useful pill. But Chu Xingchen told the system that these were all lies, and this was not a pill, but a stitched chocolate bean grain. Xingchen said that the traitor Hu Songlai should be watched with both eyes, and fear for his insignificant life would be an excellent motivation for him to behave more or less well. The system reported that it had implanted a tracking chip in Hu Songlai. The system also told the guy that since the girl's soul was torn into pieces, her family would come for Chu Xingchen. At this time, a strong roar was heard in the skies of the secret world. Long lightning bolts appeared, concentrating at one point at a great height. Chu Xingchen looked up. The other guys also saw that some kind of movement began in the sky. This could well indicate an early end to the exam, but no one knew this for sure. Li Mu also turned her gaze to the sky. Fortunately, by that time the shooter girl had already managed to collect valuable 1,000-year-old ice and get such coveted points for her team. When a circle of light appeared high in the sky, framed by a ring of light, and the rays spread out in all directions, the guys no longer doubted that the spell of the end of the exam had been cast. It was clear that the examination room would soon close, but before that, the children participating in the competition would be teleported to the real world and would be able to see their relatives. Most of the competitors were relieved that their exam with unforeseen challenges had come to an end. But there were people who considered the end of the exam to be a hindrance. Such people primarily included the noble Shizuo Wu. The guy knew that as soon as they were teleported into the real world, the Soul Eater ghosts would be released. Shizuo Wu was haunted by the fate of the villagers, who treated the children with such kindness and openness. The guy imagined how the Soul Eaters would occupy the village and torture its inhabitants. Shizuo Wu contacted Chu Xingchen and explained to him the essence of the problem. Chu, in turn, called the system and asked it to help deal with the wandering ghosts. The system said it had one plan. She added that she had just finished absorbing the evil girl's system. This system had a large supply of powerful artifacts. The system added that from these artifacts, it itself can quickly build something useful and very powerful. At this, the system chuckled strangely, which surprised Chu Xingchen. The guy watched with interest what the system was doing and how it could help deal with hundreds of thousands of wandering ghosts, soul eaters. But the system knew what it was doing. Soon, her creation already took on a certain form. Chu rushed the system because he was afraid that the examination room would close before they could destroy the ghosts. Finally, the system added a tail with feathers to stabilize it in flight. Then the system proudly declared that when using this thing, not even a stain of ghosts would remain. By that time, the emerald fog had spread so much that it was already visible even from the village. Now, most of the secret world was covered in an insidious green mist. When the old people saw the green fog, they immediately realized that someone had released the Soul Eaters from captivity. They even thought that maybe the students had told someone about their secret. But almost immediately, the old people saw a flash of light in the center of the secret world. Then they heard a distant rumble and the shaking of the earth. In 500 years of life, the old people had not seen such a phenomenon. In fact, a light so bright appeared above the secret world that in the center of the world it seemed like 100 suns. The light spread around at high speed, burning everything. Shuzuo Wu and the blue-haired girl were quite close to the epicenter of this inexplicable light. They were stunned by the power of the explosion that happened nearby. Soon the light reached such brightness that the guys couldn't even tell each other apart. Shizuo Wu and his comrade closed their eyes tightly in amazement, and the insane glow, the flash of light, also blinded the other guys. No one had ever seen anything like this before in their life. They didn't understand what was happening. This was not at all like teleportation at the end of the exam. Limu also saw this disaster that happened in the secret world. The girl shielded herself with her wounded hand from the bright light and strong hot wind that blew in her face. But the worst thing was definitely for the wandering ghosts, the Soul Eaters. They found themselves at the very epicenter of the explosion, and the main force of the powerful blow fell directly on them. A huge mushroom cloud of fire and dust rose into the sky. This spectacle vaguely resembled the eruption of a large volcano. In addition, he was visible from all sides of the secret world. The old people from the village also watched everything that was happening. They saw where the epicenter of the explosion was, and therefore saw a large mushroom cloud that expanded in different directions. Then a wave of hot, dry air covered the villagers. They talked among themselves, wondering who could have caused such a powerful explosion and for what purpose. One of the villagers shouted that this explosion would not only destroy the wandering ghosts, the Soul Eaters, but also wipe out the entire village, destroying its inhabitants. But soon the old people saw something amazing. Plumes of smoke and fire formed in such a way that the word goodbye could be made out. This was more surprising than the explosion itself. Then, the old people understood everything. It turns out that the explosion was caused by students from the Wujin school. Thus, the guys not only managed to deal with the ghosts, but also said goodbye to the old people. The old people said that they always knew that students were wonderful children. Wujian could be relied upon in difficult times. Besides, these guys are not used to leaving their friends. The villagers then shouted cheers for the students in response. Their joint cry spread far across the secret world. So it is likely that the students could hear their farewell thanks. Soon, there was pitch darkness, and the whole world disappeared from sight. Gradually, small luminous dots began to appear on the dark background, which grew constantly. A small gap appeared in the burgundy wall, from which a bright light poured out. At first, it was definitely impossible to see anything. But then there was more light, and something appeared. Soon, familiar faces appeared. But for some reason, Chu Xingchen could not remember their names. People leaned towards the guy with concern and concern. Then Chu remembered that this was the school's mentor and coach. They attacked the guys from all sides with a lot of questions. But it took them some more time to come to their senses after the teleportation, as well as after the explosion that happened before it. While the students and their relatives rejoiced at their successful return from the exam, Xingchen began to understand something. And he was almost speechless from the realization of what had just happened. Finally, Chu Xingchen gave vent to his rage. He started calling his system a bastard. Chu then added that the system dared to detonate a nuclear bomb without consulting him. Chu Xingqian continued to yell that such an explosion could have killed team members or old people. But the system assured Xingqian that it had calculated everything, and the explosion only harmed the ghosts. At this time, Shizuo Wu confidentially told his mentor that they were blown up along with wandering ghosts. The mentor was surprised by this fact. Chu decided to turn away from Sin. Then, one guy approached the guys and said that in the secret world, there had been an explosion of such force that corresponded to the strength of the martial emperor. Everyone listening opened their mouths in surprise. The messenger also added that the secret world was so damaged that it could no longer be used for competitions in the future. Xingqian thought that the old people would finally be left alone. The mentor of the Wujin school exhaled with relief and muttered that fortunately all the guys from their school were safe and sound. It was clear that he was very worried about his charges. The guys were informed that several students had been consumed by ghosts. Their souls were damaged by ghosts. Now no one knew whether sanity would ever return to these guys. The guys, out of their minds, shouted various nonsense. Most nodded their heads sympathetically towards these guys, but Shi really liked their tricks. He shouted that it was cool. Suddenly, Chu Xingqian felt slightly unwell, which, however, quickly spread throughout the body. Xingqian couldn't understand what was happening to him. The system reported that the guy had damage to his soul, which now affects his physical body. But the system advised Chu not to worry, and added that it would treat him later. Suddenly, a princess appeared next to Chu Xingqian. The girl saw that Chu was not in her best condition. He was shaking with chills, and sweat appeared on his forehead. Her Majesty asked about his health. The princess started babbling that she would now order that a doctor be brought to Chu Xingqian. She also asked Chu if he had any pain. Her Majesty added that pain should not be ignored. Chu Xingqian gently patted the princess on the head and said that there was no need to worry because he was fine. He also praised the princess for her performance in the competition. Chu said that Her Majesty performed admirably, protecting her teammates to the last. Chu Xingqian added that the princess is a true great martial artist. The rest of the team also praised the princess and noted her character and unbending will to win. Her Majesty was surprised. It seemed to her that she had done everything badly. At this time, the princess's elder brother, the second prince, approached the children. He started laughing because the princess was happy that she was eliminated during the competition. The second prince looked like a smug, boorish man of high standing. He paid little attention to other people. He believed that the whole world should fulfill his whims. When second prince Lan Fen appeared, people immediately began to quietly whisper and bow their heads obediently, so that someone's unwary gaze would not enrage the prince. The second prince continued to bully his sister. He said that she had lost a lot of strength and her life was in vain because the Wujin school team still lost and was eliminated from the competition. The princess was indignant and answered the arrogant brother that why did he decide that they lost? After all, there are no results of the competition yet, but they really scored a lot of points. But Chu Xingqian whispered to the princess that later, when the safe zone began to get smaller, they lost a lot of points. Moreover, they were busy fighting the ghosts and Jin Yuming. So at some point, the Wujin school team stopped thinking about accumulating points. They were completely absorbed in global problems, how to avoid a catastrophe and great casualties. The guys gathered in a circle and tried to count the points they had scored. Unfortunately, no points were given for the outbreak, which burned many thousands of wandering ghosts, soul eaters. According to rough estimates, the guys from Wujin school counted about 30 points that they managed to earn. Everyone was upset because they thought they had more points. In addition, the girl with blue hair said that as far as she remembers, in previous years the score to get to the next stage of the competition was at least 60 points. Lisa muttered that it turns out they won't even be able to qualify for the qualifying tournament. This meant that their Wujin school would crash out of the competition as soon as it appeared. The whole team was plunged into sad thoughts. Many felt that their life was over. They had the opportunity to become popular. Their fame could spread throughout the country. At this time, their mentor approached the guys, who was also in a depressed mood. Master Lu tried to calm his charges. He said that nothing is clear yet. But then the mentor muttered who he was trying to deceive, and with a disappointed groan, sank to the floor and covered his face with his hands. This failure even undermined his faith in success. While Xingchen was thinking about agriculture, the system pulled him back. She said, "Doesn't he really care about general experiences?" The system added that the team needed to be reassured. Since Chu Xingchen continued to decide in his mind the questions of where it would be better to locate a pigsty and where to organize a fishery, the system had to slap Chu Xingchen on the back of the head. Here, the second prince again turned to his sister. He told her that she now understands that their team is worthless, and since the princess is on this team, then she is as useless as the rest. Then, Fen leaned down to the princess's ear and whispered that she was a lazy, harmful girl. The prince added that if she was going to mingle with commoners, she should be careful. At this time, his elder brother's hand fell on the second prince's hand. The first prince said that he understood his concern about the fate of the princess, but it was better to let her rest. The second prince looked back at his brother. From his look, one could understand that he was not very friendly towards his older brother. The reason for such antipathy towards a loved one was not clear. The second prince angrily told his brother that he was certainly not as worried about his sister as the other prince. From the outside, it might seem that this was a conversation between enemies, but they were brothers. Lianfen whispered in the ear of the first prince that even though he made the princess an obedient dog, this was absolutely not enough to attract commoners to Her Majesty. The first prince laughed and told his brother that his relationship with the people around him was much worse. Therefore, he has no right to judge the princess's relationship with her friends. When the verbal skirmish between the two representatives of the imperial family ended, they turned away from each other, as if they had never known each other. Strange family relationships. Suddenly, an announcement was heard, and everyone turned their gaze upward. It was reported that examination room 11 was closed early, due to the presence of wandering ghosts in it. As a result, it turned out that it was impossible to correctly calculate the points scored by the teams, since due to the appearance of wandering ghosts, the participants did not find themselves in the same conditions. Therefore, to ensure fairness, it was decided that each player who remained to fight the Soul Eaters would receive 2 additional points for their dedication. This kind of scoring had never happened before during a competition. So many spectators and participants were amazed. True, the team had never had to confront ghosts before. It was announced that when calculating the team's points, 2 criteria were used: the fight against evil and justice. Each of these criteria was important in its own way and could not be ignored. Finally, the results of the competition appeared on the huge scoreboard. All the spectators and participants were talking excitedly among themselves, trying to find the place that their team occupied. This was perhaps the most exciting moment of each competition, when everyone wanted to know the results. At first, the spectators fell silent, looking for teams on the scoreboard, and then exclamations were heard. At N, Mao was horrified to see his team take second place and screamed in despair. The guy did not consider it possible for his team to take any other place other than first. All members of the Qinshan Academy team began to lament loudly and tear out their hair. These strong guys haven't experienced such shame for a very long time. It was a disaster. At this time, the Wujin team saw that they were ranked 14th. This meant that the guys remained in the tournament. It seemed incredible. Many rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were imagining it. But it turned out that this was indeed the case. The guys started screaming with joy, shouting over each other. They understood that they had accomplished a feat and had survived the battle against strong teams. But the princess said that they should not have won on points. Even if you count the extra 2 points for each of the 7 remaining team members, they were 20 points short. Li Mu spoke here and said that after the appearance of wandering ghosts and general commotion, she managed to quietly find 1,000-year-old ice and earn 20 points. The guys turned to Li Mu with surprise and joy. The girl explained that while some were running away from the Soul Eaters and others were fighting them, she managed to find 1,000-year-old ice. Everyone thanked Li Mu for not forgetting about the team during the difficult trials. The girl replied that she did this in order to thank the princess for her salvation. The princess thought that it turns out that she did not let the team down when she saved Li Mu's valuable life, but rather helped to win. Li Mu turned out to be a key player. The second prince saw how happy the children from Wujin School were, and was dissatisfied with the results of the competition. He said that a bunch of losers are happy that the results were rigged for them. He approached Mr. Xiao and asked why some players were given extra points since it was against the rules. The old man replied that it was a common decision of all parties. Mr. Xiao added that if not for these points, 3 A-class teams would have been eliminated from the tournament, while there were only 5 teams of this level. This seemed unfair to many. Mr. Xiao didn't say that it was the first prince's idea to give extra points. Perhaps he had his own game. Now the prince walked up to Chu Xingchen and asked him something. From the outside, it looked as if 2 old acquaintances were chatting happily. Mr. Xiao thought about what the two might have in common. He had no plausible answer to this question, but the old man decided that he should keep an eye on this upstart Chu Xingchen, who came from nowhere, and then suddenly made a lot of noise and became friends with the princess and her family. Chu Xingchen was truly in 7th heaven. He had long since given up hope that they would be able to pass this stage of the competition. Everything that was happening now seemed like a magical dream, but someone's heavy hand fell on Chu Xingchen's shoulder when he was in the midst of fun. This did not bode well, so the guy stopped rejoicing almost immediately. The stranger asked if it was true that he was Chu Xingchen from the Wujin school. The surprised and wary guy nodded affirmatively. He absolutely did not understand what was required of him. Still not understanding who he was talking to, Chu Xingchen asked the man who he was and what he needed. However, standing behind the man was his servant with the unconscious body of a young girl. Then the man leaned over to the guy and growled at what he had done to his daughter. Chu Xingchen felt great fear. He knew this moment would come, but he didn't think it would be so soon. Chu Xingchen was already thinking about a joint photo of the whole team with their mentor and coach. He was already anticipating the pleasure they would receive during a quick lunch. But the man made adjustments to Chu Xingchen's plans and dreams. The guy was feverishly trying to figure out a way out of this very difficult situation. But it was impossible to come up with anything quickly. Luckily for Chu Xingchen, the evil girl's father's hand was intercepted. Chu didn't expect support to come so quickly. This gave him a chance to catch his breath and collect his thoughts. It turned out that Chu Xingchen's coach came to the aid of his student. He was still holding Jin Yuming's father's hand and asking how he dared to grab his disciple so brazenly. The old man somehow managed to free his hand from the trainer's tenacious grip. He shouted who dared to grab his hand. The coach calmly explained that he was the new teacher of Wujin school. The old man said it was even better. He explained that after the competition, his daughter was unconscious. The inconsolable father added that he has no idea where his daughter's soul went. The old man added that before the competition, Jin Yuming said that her greatest enemy was Chu Xingchen. Therefore, the father said that Chu Xingchen was responsible for his daughter's illness. The representatives of Xuanqi's team shouted that they recognized this guy and that they were sure that he was to blame for the fact that Lady Jin was left without a soul. The guys wanted to throw Chu in prison. The fox realized that Chu Xingchen then ran to find this woman who was the culprit of everything. And apparently, Chu also made the final explosion. Lisa was thinking about how to help her friend, but then Chu Xingchen roared loudly that he was being unfairly accused. This guy's reaction came as a shock to everyone present. Both Chu Xingchen's friends and his enemies were surprised. Chu Xingchen continued to cry and wipe away his tears. He said that they were slandering him, and that he spent all his time with his secretary Hu, and they fought with wandering ghosts. Then, Chu Xingchen turned to Hu to confirm his words. Hu, remembering that Chu had fed him a pill that could explode his heart, happily confirmed every word of Xingchen. To roar more convincingly, Xingchen used a fox. He yelled that his level was low, and there was no way he could handle an opponent as strong as Jin Yuming. Chu Xingchen told the enemy that after the surveillance system was turned off, it was easy to slander the guys. He also asked the other team if they were the ones who released the ghosts. The enemy team whispered among themselves that they needed to deny their relationship to the wandering ghosts, because if everyone knew about it, it would cast a shadow on the ancient house of Xuanqi. Chu, in turn, muttered that if they try to blame him for the misfortune that happened to the girl, he will tell everyone that it was the guys from Xuanqi who released the demons. The people from Xuanqi's house began to look at each other. They didn't want to be exposed. But on the other hand, their hands were itching to deal with the cunning Chu Xingchen. For a while, Chu Xingchen thought that he would have to reveal the secret of the Xuanqi house to the public. He saw that the enemy was hesitating and could not make a final decision. But soon the people from Schwanke's house turned on the rear. They decided to retreat. But it was clear that they were burning with hatred towards Chu Xingchen. And now they knew that the guy owned their secret. Finally, they said that the Zhuangqi house remembered Chu Xingchen well, and that they will get even with him at the first opportunity. Chu thought that at least they would leave him alone for a while. Chu Xingchen was finally able to exhale when the representatives of the Zhuangqi house turned around to leave. The great tension Chu was experiencing gradually subsided. This time, it passed. Chu Xingchen complained to the system that he now had serious enemies. The system replied that there is no need to worry. It knows how to easily correct this situation. The system added that at the moment there are more important things to do and invited Chu Xingchen to visit. It was quite unexpected. The system did not often open its world to Xingchen. Chu was surprised that the system had a new background. She boasted that she inherited this from the fake system. She said she could model anything from it. Chu Xingchen immediately saw what was happening and, putting his hands together, began to ask the system to model a beautiful pig farm for him. But the system only grunted with displeasure. She added that there is no time to have fun, she needs to take care of business. First of all, she congratulated Chu Xingchen for passing the first stage of the competition, even though it was difficult. The system also said that the guy's fighting spirit had risen to a new level. He had now reached the rank of a great master. The system added that for such merits, it would grant him a new skill. The system boasted that it had been working on the skill for a long time, and now considers it its great achievement. Chu Xingchen was impatient. He really wanted to see the new skill. The system proudly announced that Chu was receiving the advanced artifact Mirror Shadow. It turned out that now the guy could create a mirror image of himself using spiritual power. The system reported that all the guy's attributes and abilities would also be present in his mirror copy. At this time, Chu declared to his face on the card that it was very beautiful. Then, Chu Xingchen figured that his copy could do all the hard work in the garden, as well as clear the land and remove manure. This was a very valuable skill. The system muttered that Chu Xingchen was only thinking about one vegetable garden. However, serious issues had to be addressed. The system pulled the guy back from his fantasies and plans. Then the system stated that, although it was not able to collect all the parts of the girl's soul, it was still able to collect consciousness from several fragments of the soul, as well as various parts of artifacts. The system added that the result was a completely new consciousness, a completely different person. She noted that such a consciousness is not entirely suitable for work, but they have no other. Chu Xingchen looked at what the system had collected with doubt. He was afraid that as a result of various manipulations of the system, something terrible could result, something similar to Frankenstein. The system replied to Chu Xingchen to calm down, nothing terrible will happen. The system told the guy to just put this soul into his body and stop asking stupid questions. At this time in the real world, it was warm and sunny. The birds sang merrily, and the soothing sound of the sea could be heard from afar. The large and beautiful city continued to live its own life. It was announced over the loudspeaker that the 73rd qualifying tournament had ended. We thanked everyone for their participation and support. Then, they announced that the teams would receive a joint photograph as a souvenir. When Chu Xingchen heard this, he was incredibly happy. He had long dreamed of a big good photo with all his friends. Now the tournament organizers have promised to do this. Xingchen immediately rushed to where everyone was gathering for the photo. And the princess was worried that she was dressed inappropriately and ran in the other direction to put on something more decent. On the way, Chu Xingchen caught a running fox. He told the fox that she was part of the team, so she had to take pictures with everyone. But the fox did not want to be photographed and wanted to bite Chu. Shizuo Wu was asking the blue-haired girl if he should raise his lightsaber while taking photos. The girl replied that this was a bad idea because the sword would light everything up. A couple of guys bent over Hu Songlai's secretary, saying that he was too tall to be photographed standing. The guys suggested that the traitor bend down or lower himself closer to the ground. At the same time, the coach of the Wujin Academy advised the team coach to smile in order to look less stern and more charming in the photo. But the coach didn't particularly like photographs. Finally, the whole team was assembled and ready to take pictures. True, Chu Xingqian had to forcefully restrain the disgruntled fox, which was trying to bite the guy. The joint photo turned out simply luxurious. Everyone fit into the frame, the guys looked cheerful and happy, except for the fox, who was afraid to be photographed. That evening, the guest house of Wujin School was quite crowded. The guys celebrated the opportunity to get into the next round of the competition almost as much as winning the whole tournament. Shizuo Wu was incredibly happy when his parents appeared on the doorstep. The guy missed them a lot, despite the fact that he was with his best friends all the time. Shizuo Wu cheerfully addressed his parents. I asked my father that he even quit his job at the border to see him, but the mother pulled her son back and told him not to approach them. Shira's mother was very angry. She started yelling that she told her son not to risk his life in vain. She said how to understand that he was the first to fight with ghosts. Shizuo Wu's mother even gave him a few ringing slaps. She said that she and her father were worried because of his stupidity and selfishness. His mother said that he would soon drive his parents to their graves. At this time, the guys watched Shizuo Wu being scolded by his parents. Lisa thought how wonderful it was to have a real family that worries about you, cares, and even scolds you sometimes. The princess was also jealous of Shai. For her, the word family was also not an empty phrase. She kept in her heart the memory of her unfortunate mother, and was also tenderly attached to her brother. The princess asked the fox who happened to be handy if she had seen Master Chu after lunch. The fox replied that he said that he had some urgent business and disappeared somewhere. Her Highness thought this was very suspicious. It was already such a late hour, and she couldn't contact Xingqian. The princess also remembered that the guy looked bad today. The princess knew that in such a big city something bad could happen. She also remembered that the Xuanqi house harbored a grudge against their master. Therefore, Her Majesty ordered everyone to look for Chu. At the same time, there were also many people in Xuanqi guest house. But there were completely different moods and conversations than in the guest house occupied by the Wujin school team. A small candle burned alone on the table. Its weak flame cast vague reflections on the faces of the people gathered around, as well as on the walls of the small room where the small council was taking place. The fact that Jin Yuming had managed to release wandering ghosts of soul eaters into the secret world was quietly discussed. No one had any idea why the girl did this. Someone added that Jin tried to control almost the entire tournament in that room. Those present were surprised where such strength came from in a rather mediocre girl. The girl's father added that no matter what she does, she will always remain his daughter, and he must do everything to protect her. And if you fail to protect, then take full revenge for her. The father gently hugged his daughter's head and whispered bitterly that he would do everything humanly possible to return her soul to her body. He promised to do it, even if it took years. Yuming's father told his brother that they urgently needed to kidnap Chu Xingqian, then skin him alive, gouge out his eyes, and tear out his spine, so that he suffers until his daughter wakes up. If the people from Xuanqi's house knew that Chu Xingqian was only a few meters away from them at this time, they would be amazed and overjoyed. But Chu had no intention of making them happy. Soon people rose from the small table and prepared to leave. The war council was over, the main topic of which was in what order to torture Chu Xingqian. Soon the small candle in the room was extinguished, and the last of the meeting participants left the room. Complete peace and silence finally reigned in the room. All that was left in the room was the unconscious evil girl. But she wasn't just unconscious. Her body was without a soul, so she couldn't wake up anyway. Soon, after making sure that everyone had left, Chu Xingqian appeared in the room. He jumped down from above, where he had an observation post, and from where he could hear all the conversations of the enemies. Chu Xingqian complained to the system that his whole body was numb, while he squatted for half a day and listened to how they were going to torture him, and in what order they would rip off his skin. The system said they didn't have enough time to listen to Chu's whining. She asked the guy to introduce a soul into the girl's body, which the system itself collected bit by bit. The system instructed the guy that he must first open acupuncture points with the help of his spiritual power in order for the soul to be implanted successfully. I had to expose the girl. Then, Chu Xingqian gently pressed several points on the girl's back, and the system that was nearby held the soul, completely ready for implementation. Everything was going quite well. Soon, Chu Xingqian very carefully brought the soul to the girl's body and began the reunification process. He really expressed fears that the father might understand that it would no longer be his daughter in front of him. The system said that in order for Chu Xingqian not to drift, the girl should retain her old memory, so that the father should not suspect anything. True, there will be changes in the girl's character. These changes were precisely what confused Chu Xingqian. Meanwhile, loud, persistent knocking and screams were heard at the door. Chu Xingqian realized that their stay had been discovered, and it was time to leave. The evil princess was screaming furiously under the doors. She suspected that Xingqian was being forcibly held captive and skinned alive. She screamed that she would break down the door if they didn't let her in. Soon the girl's father appeared and said that the princess was mistaken and that they were not holding Chu, and that only his daughter was in the room who was unconscious. The princess had not yet calmed down. She rudely interrupted the old man and said that she was just going to visit his daughter. No one could stop Her Majesty if she was up to something. Her Majesty did not bother to open the doors softly, she kicked them open. Her impatience and fear for Master Chu were too great. But what she saw behind the door excited her even more. The first thing that caught your eye was the unconscious girl who was lying with her back bare. Everyone who entered the room gasped in amazement. But this was far from the complete picture. The bedding that was supposed to cover Jin Yuming's nakedness had been partially torn off and was hanging on the floor. But the most amazing thing was not even this hanging blanket. Next to the naked girl's bed, everyone saw Chu Xingqian hiding, who pretended to be looking for something under the bed. Such a sight was too much for the princess's vulnerable soul. The princess's eyes widened in surprise. Jin Yuming's father, who stood next to the princess, was no less surprised. But unlike Her Majesty, he did not have warm feelings for Chu. Chu Xingqian saw his friends and the girl's father in the room and shouted that this was not at all what they all thought. Chu Xingqian tried to explain that he simply slipped and fell. But who was he trying to deceive with such a childish trick? At this time, Jin stirred and turned over on her side. The cover slipped further, revealing the girl's bare breasts. This fact, far from improving Chu Xingqian's situation, even worsened the situation. Chu Xingqian wanted to close his eyes in horror, but he was afraid that Jin Yuming's father would attack him. At this time, the girl sat down on the bed, not really trying to cover her bare chest. She looked towards Chu Xingqian, who was trembling with fear, and uttered only one word: Master. At this time, this dirty slut appeared in the princess's imagination, who did not hesitate to flash her bare breasts in the presence of men. A man's hand touched the girl's full lips, but the princess's imagination carried even further. She imagined how, in the secret world, Chu Xingqian tried to take his own life when he saw that the Soul Eaters had broken free. On the way, the half-naked Chu Xingqian met Jin Yuming. Chu shouted that he was going to take out his anger on the defenseless girl. Chu Xingqian held a large leather whip in his hands. Then, a picture appeared in the princess's mind of Chu Xingqian beating Jin Yuming with a whip. The girl yells that she doesn't like the spanking and wants to take a break. But Chu is not going to back down. Jin Yuming begs Chu Xingqian to let her go and stop torturing her. She calls him master and says that she will do anything for him as long as he leaves her alone. Chu Xingqian shouted that this was all a lie, a girl's sick fantasy. He vehemently argued that this had never happened and could not have happened. True, for some reason they didn't really believe Chu Xingqian. Hao Gung grimaced in disgust and muttered that she didn't think Chu Xingqian was such a dirty pervert and did such disgusting things. Chu swore that this was all fiction. The princess was generally in complete shock. She said that Chu Xingqian was doing disgusting things, and now Her Majesty was very disappointed in her Master Chu. Jin Yuming's father was speechless at first when he heard what pictures the girl's imaginations imagined. He couldn't believe that this asshole could bully his daughter like that. But then, when the girl's father came to his senses a little, he roared that he would skin Chu Xingqian alive and tear out his spine by the roots. The daughter rushed between her father and Xingqian. Jin Yuming fervently asked her father to stop, because he didn't know anything. She said that his careless actions could ruin his daughter's reputation for life. The old man remained excited, but calmed down a little, intending to listen to what his beloved only daughter was going to tell him. The others also listened, Chu Xingchen realized that the procedure of skinning him and uprooting his ridge had been postponed for some time. During this time, the guy was going to figure out a way to escape from here. The father sat menacingly on a chair in front of the children. Jin Yuming knelt in front of him, and Chu Xingchen sat next to him. The guy tried to be as inconspicuous as possible. Jin Yuming told her father that it was time to reveal her secret to him. She said that she had known Chu Xingchen for a long time. Moreover, she had even been secretly dating him for a long time. The girl added that it was Chu Xingchen who saved her soul after the ghost soul eaters attacked her and were going to deprive her of her soul. It was only thanks to Chu Xingchen that she remained alive. Xingchen himself listened to this story of Jin Yuming. It turned out that the girl was very prudent. The way she was now couldn't be compared to the way she used to be. The girl turned out to be devoted to Chu Xingchen, and now, without a twinge of conscience, she told her father fairy tales in order to calm him down and get Chu Xingchen out of harm's way. Chu was grateful to her. The old man asked why his daughter didn't tell him about her relationship with Chu Xingchen earlier. He was also surprised that since they had been together for a long time, why was Chu Xingchen sitting on tenterhooks next to her? To prove the truth of her words, Jin Yuming suddenly pulled Chu Xingchen's head towards her and placed it on her full, round breasts. Chu almost lost consciousness. The girl repented. She said she was afraid to tell her father because she suspected he would be against it. Therefore, she initially pretended that she did not know who Chu Xingchen was. Jin Yuming's father muttered that this story does not change anything, and it would be worth flaying Xingchen anyway. The old man added that he would never allow his daughter to be with Chu. As the old man imagined what Xingchen could do to his daughter, his eyes became bloodshot, his hands clenched into fists, and an almost bestial roar escaped from his throat. Chu has gray hairs. Jin Yuming said that although he will always remain a father to her, she sees her future life together with Chu Xingchen and therefore will not allow him to be offended or tormented. At this time, tears suddenly flowed from the old man's eyes. He muttered that she hadn't called him father since puberty. And now, in front of Chu, she called him father again. Chu thought that the threat had already disappeared. But Father Jin said that before his daughter called him old man, but now in front of Chu Xingchen, she started calling him father. It was too much. The old man let out a heart-rending cry and set off to catch up with Chu Xingchen, shouting that he was going to kill him for spoiling his daughter. Jin Yuming tried to reason with her father, but the girl's father became even more angry. He said how dare his daughter fight against her father, against her blood, while supporting that dirty farmer Chu Xingchen. The old man shouted that this was a disgrace for their family, a real disaster. He added that he would never allow his noble daughter to be together with such a dirty ragamuffin as Chu. After these words, Jin Yuming's father finally left the room, and the guys breathed a sigh of relief. Chu Xingchen still continued to tremble. It was quite tiring and scary. Jin Yuming turned to Chu Xingchen and said that the problem had now been resolved. She also apologized that she may have scared Chu Xingchen, but she wanted to save him from her father's wrath. Then, Jin Yuming lowered her head in front of Chu Xingchen and said that she was his servant, and he was free to order her to do whatever he wanted. The astonished Chu muttered that she no longer called him master. Chu realized that these were tricks of the system and asked her directly what she had done with the girl. The system said she had such a nasty character that they had to do some tweaking. Chu Xingchen yelled that such changes in the girl's behavior are a disaster. After all, her father will sooner or later suspect that his real daughter could not behave like a lady. The system responded that Jin Yuming was not close to her father, but she was constantly looked after. Therefore, her character often changed. Therefore, the system believed that the old man would not notice the substitution. The girl, in turn, affectionately said that she had no experience of life in this world, but she would try to become good and sweet to Jin Yuming. Chu thought what nonsense. Jin Yuming said that she would resolve all issues with her father herself, so that he could not harm Chu Xingchen. And for Chu himself, she is ready for anything and will do whatever he wants. Jin Yuming's last words were heard by Chu Xingchen's friends, who, out of curiosity, could not stay in the corridor for long and stuck their naughty heads through the door. What she heard again became a blow to the princess. She muttered that no one could have expected this from Chu Xingchen. It turns out that he and Jin Yuming are much more than friends. Her Majesty was beginning to get angry. Everyone saw the princess as evil, and everyone feared this more than the plague or wandering ghosts, eaters of souls. It was impossible to cope with the princess. The princess literally hissed that she did not expect Chu Xingchen to associate with such dysfunctional women. The princess's faithful assistant, Hao Geng, standing nearby, half-drawn her sword. Chu Xingchen immediately shouted that everything they heard was not true, that all this was invented only to deceive the girl's father. But Her Majesty did not seem to believe it. She asked Chu what kind of relationship he had with this Jin. Chu Xingchen frantically searched for a way out of the sticky situation. The princess was no easier to deal with than Yumin's father, but soon Chu Xingchen had a brilliant idea. He pointed his finger at his secretary and said that it was all Hu Songlai's fault, not his. And Miss Jin is in love with his faithful secretary.
Chu added that because of unrequited love for Hu Songlai, the girl went crazy and released wandering ghosts. Standing next to her, Jin nodded her head in confirmation.
Chu Xingchen added that back in the secret world, when he told everyone to run away but took Hu with him, he was going to take him on a date with Jin, who was yearning for her lover. In the end, Chu Xingchen added that Jin had been engaged to Hu Songlai for a long time. Now Hu Songlai howled in horror. He saw Jin Yuming's father fiercely protecting his daughter from the boys. Xingchen glanced sideways at his careless secretary, and he immediately remembered that Chu had fed him a magic pill that threatened to explode his heart if he went against Chu. Hu Songlai, fearing the pill, dutifully confirmed everything. True, he did not know that the pill was actually a stitched bean grain, which threatened him not with an explosion of the heart, but with diarrhea. The girls were glad that Chu Xingchen did not turn out to be as vicious as they thought at first. And now they directed all the rage that had accumulated in them towards the poor secretary Hu Songlai. Chu Xingchen himself was surprised at how he managed to deftly resolve the situation and regain the favor of the girls. But the system reported that the girls did not believe in all this as much as they wanted to believe. Chu muttered that all these problems were due to the stupid ideas of the system. The system said that it had ensured that the beautiful girl obeyed Chu Xingchen in everything, and he was again dissatisfied with everything. The system said that it rummaged through the memories of the evil girl, but there was very little useful information there.